about them Cowboys? It's the Cowboys Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Dallas Cowboys every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from America's team, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Cowboys Squad Show, starting now.
Well, the countdown to Cowboys Training Camp continues, and welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. That is the co-host of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast, Marcus Mosher, crushing it every day with Landon McCool, along with my co-host for the in-season Cowboys postcasts, former Cowboys coach Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, coming up on today's show, we are now less than a month away from the start of the Cowboys' 66th training camp, which begins in Oxnard on July 21st. By the way, a little note, the Cowboys announcing overnight that 16 practices are going to be open to the fans if you're going to make the trek to California and Oxnard. Great weather there. There is more news that we're going to get into, but coming up on today's show as well, there is a national host, and he doesn't work for the four-letter network. Used to, but doesn't work there anymore. He has already written the Cowboys off, and not only that, he says it's going to be a one and done for Brian Schottenheimer and the Cowboys coaching staff. So we're going to get into that. And remember last week when we told you Pro Football Focus ranked the Cowboys running back room dead last? Well, this one kind of went under the radar. It's not a new release, but apparently a lot of people missed it. But where they ranked Dak Prescott in the quarterback rankings might surprise you. We're going to get into that coming up as well. But guys, good morning. Before we get going, I just wanted to make a real quick note. I thought it was a really classy move by the Cowboys to send out a lot of social media love to the Mavericks and a nice welcome to new number one pick Cooper Flagg after his big night last night.
Yeah, and I want to say, as a Laker fan, thank you very much again, Nico Harrison, for Luka Doncic. We'll take good care of him. So there you go. That's all I have to say about the NBA.
Yeah, well, I mean, still, yeah, that we're going to congratulate a guy who made the worst trade in professional sports history. What that really tells you is, if you don't think that was an absolutely put together by the NBA, well, we have got to get this TV market in Los Angeles looking good. Hey, thanks a lot for drawing me off sides. I don't even want to talk about Nico Harrison. I don't even want to talk about, complete and total ineptness. And then hang your rear end off the side of a moving boat and crap in a swinging jug and get the first pick. I mean, you couldn't even make that. You can't even make this crap up.
It's great. It's been a long time since the Lakers have been able to, trade for a superstar. Like, oh, that's not true. They traded for Anthony Davis. Shaquille O'Neal. Kobe Bryant. Let's make sure this TV market out here is well taken care of. Okay. It's been a long few months for us Laker fans, So I just want to, feel sorry for us.
Congratulations, Rob Pelinka, for coming to the Metroplex and absolutely taking your cat pistol and shaking down some poor shoe guy from Nike.
All right. On that note,
we're doing great to start. This is awesome.
All right. Well, on Monday night, Marcus, when Landon was doing his part, we had a pretty deep conversation about expectations for the upcoming season and how, if you look at so many of the different storylines that you and we have highlighted, there should be plenty of motivation, right? A lot of chips on the shoulder, right? For a lot of Cowboys, the organization, big step back last season, a lot to prove, a lot to play for going into this season. Well, we also noted that there are a lot of people outside of Dallas that are kind of not buying some of the good vibes that we've been talking about, from OTAs and minicamp, right? And that includes Colin Cowherd, not Cowboy, Cowherd, who went off on a Cowboys tirade on his show. And we know Stephen A doesn't like the Cowboys, but Cowherd says that the Cowboys are going to get blown out both games by both the Eagles and the Commanders, and that this is going to be so bad that it's going to be a one and done for Brian Schottenheimer and his young coaching staff.
It's possible, right? Like I don't see them getting blown out in those 4 divisional games. I mean, they did beat Washington in Washington last year, and they were beating Jaden Daniels and the Commanders in the first half of the game in Week 18 last year, a game that Washington wanted to win, and it was going so poorly for Jaden that they actually pulled him because I think they were afraid he was going to get hurt. So again, that's last year. I think the bigger picture point is here is could this be so bad for Brian Schottenheimer that he ends up being one and done? And I would say, look at Jerry Jones's track record, and I think it would show you that that's probably not the case, right? He didn't fire Mike McCarthy. He let him coach out his 5-year contract. He didn't fire Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett was here for a decade, and he just let his contract expire. He gave him plenty of time to develop. Jerry talks about how he regrets firing Wade Phillips midseason. He talks about how he regrets firing Chan Gailey. I just don't think they didn't fire Bill Parcells, right? Parcells decided to retire. Jerry, for as much blame as he gets for a lot of different things, and a lot of it's deserved, he's pretty patient with coaches. Even if this season goes very poorly, I have a hard time seeing Shotty be gone after 1 year.
Well, I'm going to say this, that I think that it could happen? Yeah. Do I think that that's the direction that it's going to happen as we sit here on the 26th of June? I'd probably tend to say no. You could talk me into this Cowboys team being a 5-win team, 4-win team, schedule they got, inexperienced coaching staff they got. Jerry's going to pay the defensive end big money. He paid the quarterback big money. And
how much money again?
I'm checking the clock.
And if they were to go out after having the league's highest paid quarterback, after having the league's highest paid defensive player, post him a 5-12 record, might he get him a severe case of the red ass? Yep. And might he absolutely say, at my age, it is time to reset the scenario here? You could sell me that. Do I think that's what's going to happen again? June 26th? Probably not, but I think Cowherd's smart enough to say, I don't think this organization is to the level that they used to be, and you could make a case for them, getting beat twice by Washington and twice by Philadelphia, and with that being the case, this thing could turn south in a heartbeat.
So let's talk about, if Cowherd's right, how does that happen? Or what does it look like? Because I do think that matters. If the Cowboys go 5-12 because CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and Dak are all out for the season by October, it's going to be really hard to blame Shotty for that, right? But if this team is relatively healthy and there's mental mistakes and guys aren't developing and they just don't look prepared and the coaching staff is putting them behind the 8 ball and they're not giving them a schematic advantage week in and week out, and that's the reason why they go 5-12, okay, now I think we can have the conversation. But I think how that happens or where they finish and how that looks, I think it does matter, because I could see a case where, maybe they're not a very good team. Maybe they win 6 or 7 games, but it's not because of the coaching staff. It's because of injuries, or it's because some players, or whatever it is. I don't think Brian Schottenheimer is going to get the same kind of leash that Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy got. But I would be surprised if they move on from him in year one. He's clearly trying to build a culture here, and I don't think you can build a culture by moving on from a coach in year one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that you go back to how Jerry does business when he does, let's say, allow you to have a say in the room when you are given the bullhorn and you get a chance to speak whatever your opinion is. And normally it's a personnel opinion. But Mike McCarthy thought that Dak was good enough to be given a big contract. And the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator were Brian Schottenheimer. And I'm 100% sure that he stood up and said, we need to pay this quarterback. Jerry does not do things on his own when it comes to football. He listens to the people around him. Now, I'm going to go back to when Dave Campo in his last year here decided to hire Bruce Coslett to come in here and run the offense. Terrible. One and done. Now you can say we didn't fire Dave Campo in 1 year. No, but he got rid of the entire offensive staff because it was bad. When they changed and Jason decided not to hire, trying to think of who he interviewed when he interviewed Paul Alexander. And it might have been
I think it was after Bill Callahan.
Correct. That's a whole nother animal, because they brought Bill Callahan in here, attempted to make him the offensive coordinator, play caller. However, in giving him that title, he had to use Jason Garrett's verbiage. So that entire offseason, Wade Wilson was spent tons of time with Callahan teaching him the offense, and that was a bad mistake. That blew up. But they brought in somebody else that was an experienced line coach, and I can't remember who it was. But anyway, they decided to go Paul Alexander. Paul Alexander is a Jim McNally disciple, which they're not as much sit back and punch guys as they are more, hey, we're gonna be elephants on parade here, and we're gonna get underneath guys and we're gonna lift them. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that did not work with Smith, Zach Martin. They were like, no. We've been taught a certain way. So then he got fired midseason, and I want to say I don't know if Frank Pollock had been gone, or they brought in the guy that had played for the
Mark Colombo.
Yep. Yeah, and then brought Hudson Houck in kind of as a consultant who had taught those guys the technique that both Tyron and Zach were comfortable with. And so is it impossible, again, that Jerry would pull the trigger here? I mean, I thought the interesting thing that Cowherd said is that he also put a timestamp on the fact that by Thanksgiving, he's going to have realized he's crapped the bed here with this hire, and look out. I mean, he may make a change knowing by Thanksgiving he's made a mistake. So, Cowherd has an opinion, and certainly a smart guy, sharp guy. And, to come out and make a statement like that tells you that he may know something that you and I don't know.
I will also say, it's really hard to predict these things because I can remember, and I'm not trying to dunk on Colin Cowherd, but he thought that the Eagles should fire Nick Sirianni after his opening press conference because he just gave off weird energy vibes, or that the Lions should fire Dan Campbell after his first season where I think they won 3 games. Like, these kind of things are hard to predict. Like, sometimes we think these guys are going to turn into awesome head coaches, and they don't. Some of the head coaches that we think are wild hires end up becoming some of the best coaches in the league. So listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm not going to say whether he's right or wrong, but it is interesting to see that the national media clearly isn't as high on this hiring as maybe some of the local guys are.
I think too, and we'll take our break here in a minute, but Coach, I think, look, the proof is in the pudding, and we've seen a shift in the NFL, thanks, I think, in large part to the Rams hire of Sean McVay, of teams trying to find the next young up-and-coming star, right? I think fair to say that's a fair assessment, generally speaking. But I think, too, kind of a bigger question, Coach, is not only Brian Schottenheimer, but he's bringing in a lot of young coaches without NFL experience. And that's to me almost more of a question mark than Schottenheimer himself.
Well, I mean, that football right now in general, you can look at the college game, is going to younger guys. I mean, you can look at guy down at Texas State, G.J. Kinney. You can look at a lot of different, and he's done a hell of a job. I mean, hell, he beat Baylor 2 years ago. You can look around and see a lot of guys wanting young, energetic people that can relate. They feel like guys that can relate to this generation of social media, young kids. I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, my son looks at me twice a day and is just like, God, my dad is old. And you know what? I get it. I get that. But I also know Sean McVay was smart enough to surround himself with some veteran guys when he took the job with the Rams.
Wade Phillips.
His dad taught him. I mean, I can remember Sean McVay at the combine, young guy, and just trying to get in. And he did it the right way. And there's nothing wrong with that. And we know that the NFL is a plagiarism business. So, yeah, somebody says, man, they hired that young hotshot over there. Let's get our next young hotshot.
Yep.
And Nick Sirianni gets a job. And then the guy at Arizona gets a job. And then, I mean, we could sit here and start grading how these young guys have really done. And then you can say a lot of them were also smart enough to have really bright, experienced coaches at the right positions.
Yeah.
Philadelphia wins because they arguably have they've got the best roster. That's one. They've also arguably got the best offensive line coach in the business, and Jeff Stoutland. He's such a good offensive line coach. They spend time at the owners' meetings trying to eliminate tush push that he.
Well, they also have Vic Fangio, one of the better defensive coordinators in the league, who is
correct,
very experienced.
Right. So that's the other thing I was going. You look at Kansas City. There's a reason Kansas City wins. Experienced head coach. It's a defensive coordinator, a special teams guy that everybody or multiple people have considered to be a head coach, a great play caller in Andy Reid. So, I mean, there's two sides to that. And yeah, do I want the young guy bouncing around at practice that is a coach and he's not in there with coaching shoes on? Hell, he's wearing cleats. Okay, that's okay, and that's nice. Lose about 4 or 5 in a row and get this media on your ass and tell me how it works.
All right. Coming up, great answer, Coach. I have a different coaching story that I want to run by you, and later on we're going to have the PFF quarterback rankings. We have some more Cowboys news and notes, and also some of the highlights from the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast with Marcus and Landon McCool. Also, we want to hear from you via the comment crew, so please jump in and share your thoughts. We want you to be a part of the show. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, if you ever wish managing your money felt easier, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending all in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you are also building wealth. If you share your finances with someone, Monarch can help you stay on the same page. And if you really have a financial goal you've been meaning to get serious about, they will help you with that as well. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Okay, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Marcus Mosher and the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, happy to be with you on this Thursday. Less than a month to go now until the start of Cowboys Training Camp. All right, speaking of coaches, I read a funny story from former Cowboys receivers coach Todd Haley. And he said that there was a day during practice, a random midweek practice, coach, that Bill Parcells, when he was here, had one of his tight ends, Dan Campbell, now the Lions head coach, start a fight in practice to try to get the team going. So I'm wondering, Coach, I know how passionate and tough-minded you are, and I mean that as a compliment. Did you ever feel the need, or did you ever call for a little extra during practice to kind of get your guys fired up that you can think of? No.
Yeah, no, okay. I didn't. I mean, we had enough. Now we always had enough juice going, and I was also there at a time when we had very veteran players. I mean, there was, until we started getting, having really poor records, like I was talking about earlier, which was Dave Campo's last 2 years. I mean, we had veteran players. We had players that I don't think really, really needed that kind of juice. Bill Parcells had, he had his way that he certainly viewed things, and so did, from the stories I understand, so did Jimmy Johnson. So I can't say that I ever wanted some sort of a brouhaha between our own guys. But it's not the craziest thing I've heard. I mean, I've heard a lot of other stories like that.
I've got a lot of good Todd Haley stories that I'll tell you sometimes, Stretch, not on the podcast because they are not appropriate for this. But I will say, Todd Haley, Western PA guy like myself. Yeah. Every once in a while, I think some of these PA guys, we get sick and tired of the weather up here. You hate our life. You're wishing that you lived in California or Florida by the beach. And every once in a while, you just got to get some of that energy out. So it doesn't surprise me at all that Todd Haley would want to get into a little bit of have his team get into a scuffle. We saw Bill Parcells and Todd Haley get into a fight one time on the sideline. So nothing there surprises me from Todd Haley at all. I know that there are coaches out there that want their team to play with an edge. And I think we can go through some of the coaches that do that. And I do think there's an advantage. But I also think you're wasting valuable practice time because you don't get very much practice time anymore. If you're having to waste it breaking up fights and getting everybody to calm down, that's not productive either. So I think there's clearly a fine line there.
Yeah, I was around Todd Haley my first or the 2 years I was in the USFL, and I mean, I like Todd Haley, and you can see where he's one of those guys that's kind of on edge. I mean, this is a guy that's a golfer. I mean, he was a golfer. His dad, Dick Haley, was the GM of the Jets for a long time, and so he was around football. So he has a little bit of that cerebral side of being a golfer, and then being around football. So a smart guy who who obviously understands people and how to flip switches in certain people, and it's some of that is good, and some of that I'll just say is probably the reason that I didn't work for Bill Parcells.
I have to bite my tongue here when it comes to my guy Todd. So that's all right. I like Todd. I think he did a really good job for Sirius. I love listening to him talk. He's a great storyteller.
Oh,
this is why we're talking about Todd Haley on a random Thursday morning.
Nice. Well, I think too, it's a different time. I know we keep dating things, but I mean, so many of the players today, they're friends and they have the same agent and they hang out together in the off season. And so it doesn't seem like there's as much animosity. And I know that this was a fight between on the same team, but just overall that kind of rivalry hatred isn't quite the same, but maybe it'll come back.
But I also think, I mean, let's compare like some of the 80s and 90s practices where you're doing 2-a-days in the 100-degree temperature. It's not like that anymore, right? You get one practice a day, and it's usually like an hour and 45 minutes, and then you're off the next day. Once you're practicing every single day, twice a day against the same guy over and over in the heat, that's where the fights happen. You don't see it happen as much anymore because it's not that way. You see more of these, team scrimmages against other franchises.
Right.
It's understandable why we don't have more of these scuffles.
Yeah, and I mean, just so that I'm clear, and you guys are clear with how I feel. I mean, we're on the same team, and I'm preaching take care of one another.
Yeah,
I'm preaching. Hey, you're out in Dallas, and you are hanging out like you just talked about. Make sure you take care of your teammate. He's drinking him a few Frescas. Make sure you get him home. Make sure we get this. We're taking care of one another. So, I mean, again, nothing against a Hall of Fame coach. I'm sure he had a reason why he was doing that. That's just, and maybe that's the reason I'm not in football anymore, and I'm on here crapping around with you guys. It's just that's not how I believe in it.
We can start fighting more on the show. That's what we need to spice it up.
I mean, you give me a topic, and I'll get after your ass if you want me to.
Well, number one, we're grateful to have you, Coach. We love you, and we're glad you're here.
Well, thanks. I feel the love, boy. I embrace the hug.
Yeah, so let's talk about that Dak contract.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that there was one topic we did kind of get into it a little bit, and that was very early on, right out of the gate, when we first started doing these squad shows. And again, as I mentioned, we did a rundown in May, and we talked about where Dak Prescott is right now in line with other NFL quarterbacks, and we went down the list, and we had some fun with it. A lot of Cowboys fans jumped in, made their comments, shared their thoughts. Well, anyway, according to PFF, they have Dak Prescott ranked as the number 17 quarterback right now in the NFL, behind Kyler Murray and Trevor Lawrence. They have Geno Smith at number 10. What do you think?
So, all right, let's do this if we're going to do it. I love PFF. I used to work at PFF. I have a lot of friends that are there, a lot of the editors, a lot of the writers, still my friends. Talk to them every day. This is nonsense. I'm not saying that Dak needs to be a top 5 quarterback or anything like that, but the biggest knock that PFF has on Dak is that he needs to be better in the postseason. I 100% agree. And Coach, I'm sure you agree. He needs to be better in some of these big games and be better in the postseason. by the same standard, I can't have Trevor Lawrence, Geno Smith, and Kyler Murray, who have a combined one playoff win in their career, and even someone like Justin Herbert. Those 4 quarterbacks have one career playoff win. I can't put all of them ahead of Dak as well. So I've got a little bit of an issue of where they're putting Dak.
Yeah, I'm going to start by saying, when you look at their top 6 being Mahomes, Burrow, Jackson, Josh Allen, Hurts, and Daniels, pretty okay. I mean, I'd say okay there. Then you go Matt Stafford, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, and then you go Geno Smith at 10, and that's the first time that you go from talking football to talking to the horse. Whoa. 10. Okay, and then you say, all right, after 10, let's canter this horse back around here, and you go Brock Purdy, Love, Baker Mayfield, C.J. Stroud, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence. Whoa! Now that's really reaching in my mind. Do I think, and again, for just for discussion standpoint, do I think Dak belongs around that 10 to 14 range, which again, Geno Smith, Brock Purdy, Love, Mayfield, Stroud, probably. That's where the discussion begins for me. Do I believe he's better than Goff, Justin Herbert, or Matt Stafford? I do not. So that's where the discussion begins with me. And then where I really get spun out of it is, what is the value for a guy who is arguably number 10 to 14 on the list of NFL quarterbacks? That's it in a nutshell. That's for me. That's it. We can sit here. Trevor Lawrence is no more better than Dak Prescott than I am. I mean, it's just, to me, that's nuts. Geno Smith at number 10, no. Kyler Murray at 16. I mean, speaking of horse training, I could get him some mounts Friday at Lone Star. We could get him on a few mounts. I mean, that's size. So no,
good.
but financially, that's where it just, I'll have a hard time. And Joe Trahan, I work at Channel 8 and ABC, and so I'm the Cowboys analyst for them, and he constantly, kind of needles at me with this scenario, and I just think that, and this is something that I'm not going to get over it. Just like Nico Harrison making a terrible trade to the Lakers.
Disagrees. Great trade. Great trade for the Lakers.
Oh yeah, it was great. It is great. Why don't you come here to Dallas? Why don't you come here to Dallas and say it's great? They'll have a first class hanging downtown.
Yeah, I mean, again, I disagree. Now, if you want to talk, the reason why the Dak is at 17 is because of the durability issues, and that's why you're knocking him. Okay, at least I can understand that a little bit because he has missed a lot of time. But if you're basing it just on how they play, I have a hard time with some of these, even some of the other quarterbacks that you didn't mention, like Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield has put up a lot of stats in a crappy division where nobody has won 10 games over the last several years. And it doesn't result into a lot of winning. It's fun. He puts up nice stats. But we saw Dallas beat Tampa Bay last year in a must-win game for Tampa, and Baker played like crap in that game, right? So, again, I'm not trying to disparage these guys, but do I think Dak is closer to 10 than he is 17? Absolutely. And if we really wanted to get into, I think we could have a conversation about Dak versus Jared Goff, Dak versus Jalen Hurts. Coach, I think you like maybe Jalen Hurts a little bit more than I do, but 17 is just far, far too low.
Yeah, and I mean, let me say this. I don't think that Jalen Hurts is. I'm not championing Jalen Hurts at all. Sure. I mean, to me, and I was taught this when I first got into the NFL. Being an NFL quarterback is about having very quick discernment and driving the nose of the football into a very tight window, period. And I can tell you that, do I think Jalen Hurts is uber accurate with the football? No. But he squats 800 pounds, and now let's talk about what he can do. He's going to pick up every third and fourth and 1.5 or less, and he's going to extend plays because he can maneuver a little bit around and give him that opportunity to give him another half second or another quick break where he doesn't have to be as accurate driving the nose of the football. Can I argue that Matthew Stafford is better than 8 or 7, wherever they had 8? I think it is.
I think Stafford's better than Hurts, to be honest.
Yeah, I could argue he's a top 5 quarterback because he can absolutely drive the football in very tight windows. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think we could have those little quirky discussions, or okay, let's weigh Matthew Stafford's ability to be uber accurate with the football versus Jalen Hurts and his ability to extend plays, or Daniels and his ability to extend plays, or his ability to take off and run it 40 yards if he needs to. So, yeah, I get all of those talking and discussion points. Ultimately, for me, you have to create and execute critical throws in a football game. And I'm saying critical because there are 2 or 3 possessions that you're going to get where you're going to need to make the play. I don't care. When you look at the NFL and you look at, say, team 4 to team 28, there's not a whole heck of a lot of separation in there.
Nope.
And it will come down to, inevitably, you can look at the NFL. I mean, how often do we see a line in the NFL that's more than, I'm talking about a betting line, that's more than 4 or 5 points? Not very often.
No.
Yep.
So you're talking about one critical stop in a game can change a game. And you're talking about a position that if you don't have one, you're not going to win. I don't give a damn how good the rest of your team is. You don't have a very good quarterback, you're not winning. And so on that side of the football, can he make those 1 or 2 critical throws? Now, that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is, what's the weather doing? Why, in my mind, why is Josh Allen so good? He plays in the worst damn weather you can play in. I mean, for crying out loud. So, big hands, big physical guy who can absolutely throw it through a car wash and not get it wet, or he can extend the plays if he wants to. That's what puts him up there. Now, if you took Dak Prescott and put him in Buffalo, would he be as good as Allen? Hell no.
No. He's just not as good as Allen regardless. Yes.
Correct. So those are the things that that's how I look at it, and how I, 8 games, every year you're going to get them in 72 degrees, and the ball's never going to be wet unless you lick your hand.
Yeah, but the sun is going to be shining through, though. That's the problem. Those are the big windows.
All right. On that note, we'll leave it there. But that was a very, very good look at that. And we'll, I know we'll discuss it again for sure. Definitely. Thank you, guys. All right. When we come back, a couple of other notes, and we'll also hear from you via the comment crew. That is coming up next. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. It's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. So head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet.com, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL, and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Okay, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Jeff Biggs, the coach, Glenn Stretchsmith, and Marcus Mosher. Happy to be with you. We got DJ Dog 31 saying quarterbacks get ranked higher when they have good offensive lines. It's funny how that happens. Charles Anderson says the Celtics will be back.
Not this year. Not with Jason Tatum being out for the year. No chance.
Great point. Okay. So, there's been a lot of buzz about the CD George Pickens duo, right? You and Landon recently did a show, Marcus, if I'm not mistaken. But we haven't heard much about Paris Campbell and his status and his situation. Really not at all. Where do you think he fits in?
Yeah, he was somebody that we talked about on Thursday's Locked On Cowboys podcast. He was kind of an under the radar signing, and I get it. Like, this is somebody who has not done a lot over the last couple of years, but I remember talking to Bill Polian about. Bill said this is one of the best practice players he's ever seen. You got a guy that can run in the low 4.3s. He's 200 pounds. He can play in the slot. He's elusive, but it rarely translates to the field. I think that's the big issue with Paris Campbell. First of all, can he stay healthy and can he have an impact when he's on the field? I don't know, but I think when you have Pickens and you have CeeDee Lamb and you've got guys that can stretch the field vertically, Campbell is an underneath receiver. If you remember him at Ohio State, he was this screen gadget guy where you just wanted to get the ball into his hands. And maybe this is the year that it works out for him. I have my doubts. He's only 27. He is a phenomenal athlete. And Landon and I were comparing him to Kevontae Turpin, who have similar roles. The only difference is that Paris Campbell is legitimately 55 pounds heavier. We'll see. I have my doubts, but he's at least somebody to keep an eye on throughout training camp in the preseason.
Yeah, anytime you can run like that, I mean, you're going to catch somebody's eye, and anytime you can do it in practice, it certainly lends to the whoa factor of what you can do. The question is, can you play that fast when somebody's when somebody else is running with their hair on fire and they're ready to tear your teeth out? I mean, that really is it. I've seen so many guys who could really run and great hands and all that, but they're not football players. I mean, I can tell you, size, all the things considered, Kevontae Turpin is a football player. I mean, you watch him, he runs with his eyes. I mean, he sees things and he can understand leverage and how guys are moving. And there's something to be said for a guy who is a football player. And do I wish KaVontae Turpin weighed 185, 190? Yeah, you do. But he's to me, he's a special guy, and he needs to be put in that position. Do I think KaVontae Turpin is an everyday slot receiver? He's not, because he's just not good enough. He's not physical enough to get in there in those really tight areas and do what he needs to do. But from a return standpoint, from a reverse standpoint, from a get him on the edge, I mean, he can flat go, and he's proven that, and that's why he's been to the Pro Bowl and done what he's done coming out of this is a guy that was playing in Europe like 4 or 5 years ago, literally playing in Europe. Can you imagine? And then he comes, he goes to the USFL for a year, lights it up, and Mike Riley, who's a really smart coach, got him the football, and then the next thing you know, he's off and running here. And the reason is because he's a football player. I mean, that's just there's no other way to put it other than that.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest knock on Campbell. He's a phenomenal athlete, but the football side just hasn't always been there. Again, he's been somebody who teams have had to design touches for, whether that was, back at Ohio State or with the Colts. And I just don't think offensive coordinators love having to do that, right? Like, you can only draw up so many plays for limited guys like this. But again, we've seen receivers that have taken a while to get up to the speed of the NFL. Nobody's expecting Paris Campbell to be, a top 3 receiver on this team, but could he potentially beat out, maybe someone like Jonathan Mingo for a spot of the roster? It wouldn't be totally shocking.
I think it's kind of a reminder to me. I mean, we've talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about how the tight end battle should be interesting, right? But I think, after CD and Pickens, I think we could, I think there's a lot that's going to be on the line for the rest of the receiver group, right? Because really, new coach, new coaching staff, right? And how they fit in and what they're trying to do. So again, I know we say it almost every episode, these preseason games and training camp are going to be huge to see who emerges.
And I would have bet that Jalen Tolbert's going to be your wide receiver 3 this year. But I think what the rest of the guys in the roster are battling for is for snaps. Maybe Jalen Tolbert isn't somebody that's going to play 80% of the snaps the way that most wide receiver 3s play in the NFL. Maybe he's playing 40%, and that receiver 3 spot is split up between Turpin and Mingo or Jonathan Jalen Brooks or whoever ends up being that spot. I think this Cowboy coaching staff, at least the hope, is that they're open to playing the best guys, and they're not going to just go by who's the veteran or who's making the most money. And it's a big opportunity for all of these down roster guys after the top 2.
And what is a young first year NFL coach going to say when he sees a guy like Paris Campbell? What's his mindset? Man, I can make this guy a player, and I can spend a little time with him after practice. Man, we can watch a little extra film. I can make him reach and attain things that, and that's some of that is good. Again, I'm not saying it in a critical way at all. I'm saying that's why you want some of that. You want some of that vigor and all of the things that go with that, because guess what? We really don't know what Mingo is, and I don't know that Mingo knows what he is. He's been with some bad quarterbacks. So, now he's in position where he came in here, he kind of learned the offense. It's reset itself a little bit. Now Dak's back. Now you've had an off season to work with him and catch his ball and do those kind of things. And so, hey, let's go to training camp and see what we got in that scenario.
Can't wait to watch. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well. All right, we're going to take our final timeout. When we come back, some final thoughts, some final comments, and a little preview, a little tease, if you will, for the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast, which you can hear every day with Marcus Mosher and Landon McCool. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, we are back. Welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Marcus Mosher and the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, happy to be with you on this Thursday morning. We will be back with you again on Monday for our final show of June, and then it will be July. That's awesome. Training camp's going to be here before you know it. Okay, Marcus, I know you and Landon recently did kind of a deep dive on some of the Cowboys' hidden gems. That's one thing I want to ask you about. A lot of praise out there right now for undrafted Syracuse linebacker Justin Barron. What have your thoughts been of him?
So the Cowboys went out and signed 2 Syracuse defenders, and Barron is probably one of the more versatile players from the draft. He played just about every position, and on that show, you can go back and listen to it, but he played at least 300 snaps at 6 different positions on defense. He's a former receiver. His primary position was like as a overhang defender, box safety, but in the NFL, he's going to be playing the linebacker spot. And if you think about a Matt Eberflus defense and where you need these linebackers to drop and get depth and be able to cover the middle of the field, having a 6'4" guy that has, a wide receiver background with incredible hands, that's pretty intriguing, right? Like that's something that at least you can get behind. He's somebody that I'm curious to see in camp. How's the development coming? Where are they using him? And again, this is one of the best linebacker coaches in the league in Matt Eberflus. He's turned some guys that I didn't think were players at all into Pro Bowl caliber linebackers. So if Justin Barron, we start to see him working with the second team, getting a lot of snaps and reps, it might be a good indication of what they believe Barron could eventually be. I don't know if he's going to make the 53-man roster this year, but he's somebody that could be one of those first guys in the practice squad that come up on game days. Again, remember, the Cowboys have had some history or some success with these bigger linebackers or bigger safeties that they're moving to linebacker, whether it's, Marquise Bell, J-Ron Kearse kind of played both spots, safety and linebacker. Wouldn't be surprised if Barron's another one.
Yeah. Can he play special teams? Can he run down the field? Does he understand leverage? All of those things to me, if you're, we'll go back to what we were talking about earlier. If you're a football player, they'll and you can really at this level, you're in position to go do it. They'll find a place for you if you have all of those instincts, because I don't think you can teach that. It's not some of those things are just not and we'll go back to Paris Campbell. They're just not teachable.
No. You have it or you don't.
Yeah, you're either a football player or you're trying to get yourself, in position to be that. And I can remember I go back to my own stories, but I can remember, we had I can't remember, maybe it was a fellowship coach who had come to the Cowboys, and he was talking about he was talking to Michael Irvin of all things about catching the slant and extending his hands to go catch the slant. And I've heard it from a lot of different people, a lot of different receiver coaches. They want you to go out and attack the football with your hands. And I can remember Michael saying, "Pod, that ain't never working in the NFL, because the minute you go to extend your hands, the defensive back, if he's worth a crap, I don't care how strong your hands are, is going to drive through your hands and strip the ball out." So there were certain inside catches for Michael, and that was a lot of times even on a dig route, and always on a slant route, where he would catch the ball in his body because he knew they couldn't strip it out. And let me tell you something. I don't give a damn if it was Vince Lombardi. You weren't telling him different than that. So that's how in his mind, that's how he played the game. And, he's got a gold jacket because of it. And I loved Hubbard Alexander to death. He's the one that coached him in college and coached him in the NFL. But I'm going to tell you, I bet Michael coached Axe more than Axe coached Michael.
Well said. Well said. All right, Marcus, another one you guys recently did was Cowboys Super Bowl dreams hinge on 3 outcomes. And I bring that up because
Coach is going to love this one. Yeah, go ahead.
Because we've hit some pretty heavy topics so far today. So maybe we can end on a little bit of a hopeful, positive note.
So the idea for the show is we don't think the Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl this year, just to be clear. But if they were going to surprise us and they did, let's say they made it to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl, what things would have to happen? Like we've seen some teams that have had way lower, Vegas odds or expectations of the Cowboys rise up and win the Super Bowl. So what would need to happen for the Cowboys to do it? Number one, this young offensive line's got to be one of the best in the league. Like they've got to click and they've got to be good right out of the gate. The second is you're going to need probably multiple defensive players outside of Micah Parsons and Deron Bland to have Pro Bowl seasons. And this is what happened with Philadelphia last year. They knew they were going to get big time play from Jalen Carter and the rest of the defensive line. But Zach Bond coming in and being an all-pro linebacker really changed things, right?
Yeah, that was huge.
And then the third thing is you need the George Pickens project to work. You need George Pickens to come in here and be a bona fide wide receiver 1B and to scare teams down the field and make big clutch catches. It's not necessarily about the yardage and having 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns. It's more about being ready when his number's called and being reliable. If those 3 things were to happen, I do think the Cowboys could way outperform expectations.
I like that.
Yeah, I could say okay. I think those are valid points. I think that if in fact that does happen, you could see, a team win, in excess of 9 games. And if that happens, who knows? I'm an optimistic individual that's how I live my life. To me, the glass is always half full. I can always talk you into the glass being half full.
Amen.
And also tell you that I'm realistic in what in what my thoughts and what my beliefs are. And I do think they had when you look at this team, I think they had a good off season. With the Pickens pickup, with how they drafted, I think they had a good off season. I think if Mozzie Smith can step up and think we can get some play out of some younger defensive linemen and the younger offensive linemen step in and make the transition to the pro game. A quarterback stays upright and healthy. They can run the football a little bit. We can get one of these young tight ends to start showing that he belongs at this level. Yeah, I think that's possible. So
it's just that you need to have a lot of things happen. I think that's where this team is at, maybe compared to previous seasons. You need 3 or 4 of these big events to happen. Or maybe we weren't saying that a year ago, 2 years ago.
Right.
And I think, the great thing about this is we're going to be able to, we'll week to week get on this. We're going to get on this roller coaster, and sometimes you're going to put your seatbelt on, and it might go really fast. And other times you're going to be like, yeah, is this thing ever going to get to the first drop? Tick, 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 tick. Here we go. Tick, 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 tick. Oh, it's broke. You can sell me on any part of it.
Yeah. Good wooden roller coasters up here in Erie, PA, by the way. Just let you know, home of one of the first wooden roller coasters. So it's a useless fact that you did not need to head out the show.
I didn't know they still have those.
Yeah.
There's a lot about PA that I know people don't know, and there's a lot that I told you before. I know Latrobe, home of the banana split, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
You're welcome, world.
Got Hershey out there too. All right. Well, hey, the good news is, despite maybe some of the changes that we've noted, look, it's still not easy to win the Super Bowl, right? You have to earn it. It's tough. It's hard. And you know what? If the Cowboys are going to do it, and those things are going to have to happen regardless. So we'll see. That's why they play. Yeah. And as we've said, they have a lot to play for. All right, guys. Hey, great show. Thank you. Again, Marcus, you and Landon have the Locked On Daily Cowboys podcast, and you'll be doing that until we meet again next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy show. We've got a special guest, Matt Harmon from Yahoo Reception Perception, talking about George Pickens and his role in the offense. Be on the lookout for that on Friday.
All right, Coach. Thank you, buddy. Have a great weekend. We'll do it again on Monday night.
See you, bud.
All right. And thank you to all of you for listening, for watching, and for sharing your comments. We appreciate it very much. Until Monday night, this has been the Cowboys Squad Show.